first of all, look, thanks very much to everyone for coming to this parallel session. I suppose today what I'm going to speak about is the role of the club coaching officer. What I'll probably go through today, I'll have the agenda. How it really works, essentially, is probably my perception on how I would see the club coaching officer role work for you guys here. Just a bit about myself. My name is Joe Costello. I'm from Kerry. My club is St. Pat's, Blennerville. We're a very small junior club on the outskirts of Tralee. Funny enough, we're a bit of an anomaly with the demographics that you heard Benny talk about. We're actually inside in an urban area, but we're the smallest by a country mile. There's 5 football clubs in Tralee. So even though we're in an urban area, we actually suffer the same problems that maybe clubs that are suffering from rural depopulation. But however, still very proud of it. Those of you that head back to Dingle, you probably recognise the bridge and the windmill. So that's my club. You're all probably familiar with Kerry. We have a district board system as well, where we run 2 championships. So as a junior club, we're part of the St. Brendan's board. My involvement obviously started off playing with St. Pat's, and I'm sure no different to all you guys here. Finished up my playing career and went back, wanted to give back something to the club. Married in the area, 4 kids play with the club, so I became a coach. Subsequent to coaching officer and the Costello and Oak chairman. I then played with the St. Brendan's at underage level and senior championship, and I would have also coached underage teams at district championship level with those. And then it leads me on to Kerry. How I ended up with Kerry was during COVID, we were making the decision in Kerry to move from even to odd ages. So I was asked to become part of a review committee there. And lo and behold, I'm now coaching officer for the county. But anyway, the exact same as all of you here, I'm a volunteer. Today, I suppose the things that I want to talk about are about the self-sufficiency and sustainability, the Munster way. You would have heard our new chairman, Tim Murphy, talk about our ambitious goal. As a coaching officer for Kerry, I am also on the Munster Coaching Games Committee. It's an ambitious goal we have where we want all clubs in Munster to be self-sufficient and sustainable from coaching and administration. In essence, what we're looking for is that all the people in the club that are driving the club on the pitch and off the pitch are volunteers within the club. Obviously, you're all familiar with the outside coach coming in and some of the monies that's been reported being paid in Kerry, I'm sure are suffered in the same counties in Munster. So that's an ambitious aim, but we're working hard towards it. I'll briefly touch on the role profile of the club coaching officer document that was created there in 23, just to go through, I suppose, the roles that are outlined. I'll talk about what I think is the key element of the club coaching officer, which is the club coaching game subcommittee. I'll give some examples of good practices that I'm familiar with in Kerry. I'm sure a lot of you will have loads of great stories to tell across the other 5 counties, and then we'll just have a bit of a Q&A if any of you have any questions. Before I suppose I start, have we any club coaching officers here? Very good, that's excellent. Any club chairman? Brilliant, okay, that's good to hear. And I suppose we're all coaches, hands up. Yeah, that's great, okay. That probably is essentially how we all start off as a coach and we end up being roped into administration. Anyway, self-sufficiency in coaching and administration. For me, being self-sufficient is really, I suppose, depending on your volunteer base. And I think the biggest issue we have, I see it in my own club, but I see it in other clubs, is where we put an over-reliance on individuals. The club chairman is probably the key one, where he's getting phone calls over who's managing the senior team, have we balls, the dressing room toilets are broken, and the pressure that puts under. I would put the coaching officer as number 2. That particular role is supposed to be, he's almost like the director of football for the club. He's responsible for everything. If the under-14s are going bad, that's his issue. So I think as a clubs, we need to protect and support them. How do we protect them? Is that we build structures around them, which I'll go into in a bit more detail. And supporting them is literally if you're a club chairman or you're a part of the club executive, that you're there to support them in any way possible. In the smaller the roles that you can help that particular person, I think it'll have a huge difference. Sustainability is empowering them and developing them. We all mentioned here how we've all become coaches. Some of us are coerced into the coaching officer role. So it's just, how do we empower them? How do we give them the backing that you're the man for the job or you're the lady for the job? And then once we have them in, how do we develop them? Okay, how do we encourage them to go on coach education programs? How do we help them to engage with their local games development coordinator? That's very important. And again, that goes back, underlines about building structures within the clubs. So I think sometimes we have the club executive was set up many, many years ago. It is a good structure, but I think sometimes the roles are very much dependent on individuals. And it's probably the biggest reason why an awful lot of people, as coaches and administration, leave the GA. I always think of a guy, I'm Dermot, who's the West Clare GDC in football. It's from my own club in Kerry. And there's a guy that was involved many years ago, came from Waterford, came in. We saw he was capable. Within 1 year, he was club secretary. He was gone out the gap after 3 years because he was so capable. We just kept landing work on him and it burnt him out. So I think that's vital, important, that clubs build those structures around just to support those officers. Okay, so this is the role profile of the club coaching officer. This is a document. I know you won't be able to read it, but we'll forward it in due course. What I wanted to point out really here is the detail for one volunteer in a club. And, you know, my quick survey with you there, nearly every one of you was coaching at one level. You're probably the head coach, so you've got the demands on that and coordinating training, session planning. And then if you're a club coaching officer. So it's a significant body of work. You know, you're expected to plan, deliver and review on 7 or 8 different programs. There's a huge amount of cooperation and collaboration with people within your club, parents, coaches, your executive, your children's officer, and then obviously with the county GDCs and, you know, for those of you that have the one club model, the other codes that we have, your skills, there's a huge skill set required, there's a huge knowledge required. So if I was coming into the GAA and I was being approached to be the coaching officer, like I was many years ago at St. Pat's, it was downplayed. But if I was handed that document, I probably would have had second thoughts. So I the purpose of showing you this is just to show that it's a significant body of work. And what I want to discuss now is how we build a structure around to help a coaching officer fulfill some of those roles. Okay, so this is my interpretation of the previous document. You have to be an excellent communicator, extremely organised, you have to be articulate, you have to have an in-depth knowledge of the playing and administration rules and codes of the GAA. A lot of us probably may have got involved because our kids got involved in the club and we were coaching and we showed a bit of capability and we've assumed this role. And a lot of us might know those rules and codes. But again, based on the profile, that's my perception of the document. We have to be empathetic in terms of dealing with parents, in terms of dealing with coaches, in terms of dealing with kids if we are coaches. We have to be persuasive. We have to try and coerce guys. You know, a guy might want to coach his kid at under 10. We might have a full list of coaches there. How do we get him to stay coaching at a different level? You have to be an effective leader. You have to show leadership, particularly when the proverbial hits the pan and you come across issues. You have to be an influencer. You have to try and influence coaches. It's probably the hardest. You speak to the GDCs. I know Donald Daly, our county head of games, who we are very lucky to have in Kerry. It's the one thing that he feels is the biggest challenge in the GAA is how do we influence coaches? Because I think sometimes coaches come in, they have a perception of the way they want to play or the way that they see their team playing. So I think, you know, as a coaching officer, you probably have to be an influencer. You have to be a mediator in times of crisis when you have issues amongst coaches or issues between coaches and parents. And you have to be extremely diligent and have about 40 hours in the week to spare. So it's an extremely demanding role. The key roles of the coaching officer, this is where I suppose my perception, and hopefully it's some advice that you can carry back. The first one is to establish a coaching game subcommittee. For me, that is the most important, okay? In this room later, my colleague, Colm O'Brien, who's one of our hurling GDCs, he's going to speak about the importance of developing a coaching games plan, extremely important. Donald will be on to talk about how you engage your GDC. But for me, number one is to establish a club coaching game subcommittee. It goes back to my original point about trying to take the pressure off one individual. Okay, if you think about it, if you're in a role, if you can get like-minded people around you to support you, particularly during times of bad, when there's big decisions to be made. I'm sure some of you are probably struggling to get coaches to coach, and then some of you might have a situation where you might have, a couple of coaches or too many coaches wanting to coach the same team. You could have parents involved, particularly dads. How do you manage that? So it's important that you have a structure, you have people that you can trust to help you to make those right decisions. That's very important. Identify key personnel with expertise to join the coaching committee. Now, I use the word expertise lightly, right? What I mean by that is people that may have a knowledge of one particular facet on the responsibilities that you have to do. An example might be, one of the roles is developing club school links. So you might know, is there a guy that's maybe a coach in the club that gets on well with the local principal, or a guy that is a coach that has kids in the school that maybe works night shifts that can come and help and do coach and be that link. So they don't necessarily have to be the likes of Brian Cuthbert there, who's very knowledgeable. Just a guy that can fill a particular role for you. And I think that's important. That's just one example. For me, the most important relationship for a club coaching officer, number one, without a shadow of a doubt, is the club chairperson. Because the club chairperson, he's the chairperson of your executive. The coaching games subcommittee should report into that executive. If he needs stuff, or if the coaching games subcommittee needs stuff, if they need to make tough decisions around coaches or around the coaching development plan, you need the backing of your chairman. So that is the most important relationship for the club coaching officer to have. The Costello and Oak chairperson, mainly due to the fact that you're, as a coaching officer, the most important players you're dealing with are Costello and Oak, and they're the biggest body of players. Most of us have probably two, maybe one senior team. Some of us might be lucky enough to have 3 senior teams. But Costello and Oak, particularly if you're a dual club in a lot of counties, you're dealing with hurling and football. One club model could be another 2 or 3 codes into it. So you're a Costello and Oak chairperson, because they would have a good in-depth knowledge of on the ground in terms of parents and coaches and players. Your club children's officer, obviously one of the most important things that we that covers under the remit is that all the coaches are safeguarded and fully guarded, vetted, and have their ICGG done. So that's important. And then your club GDC. The club GDC plays a huge role. I'm lucky enough, I have a great relationship with all our club GDCs in Kerry, and probably the one thing that would frustrate them the most is a lack of interaction between them and their club, particularly the coaching officer. In a lot of cases, they have to go to the Costello and Oak chairperson to maybe get some links. So I think that's very important, because they are there to support you in all different aspects. The key for me is delegate and collaborate. You can't do it all. You can't do it all by yourself. If you do, you will find it tough. You will struggle, and it's very important that you collaborate with everyone around you within the club. So the main responsibilities from the subcommittee is to develop and implement the development plan with support from the club GDC. So if you want to develop a coaching games plan, you should definitely pick into resources, okay, that you have. Your club GDC should be the starting point. They'll have loads of experience in it. They'll share ideas from other clubs that they've done. The recruitment of suitable coaches and mentors for each age group. Again, that's very important. You want to pick the right people for the right jobs, even breaking down the roles and responsibilities within each coaching age group. There could be a parent that's really keen to get involved, but it may be in administration. So it's important that you involve them and get them on board. Coordinate coaching courses and workshops in conjunction with your GDC. This is again is a role where your GDC will really help you. You'll bring your coaches. Some of them may need the foundation or the ICGG course. Some coaches want to be challenged. They want to go up to Ward 1. Part of your maybe club development plan is from under 14s up that you want all your coaches to have the level 1 course done. So that's something that your GDC would help you with. Schedule regular meetings with individual coaching groups. I think this is something that probably doesn't happen a lot in clubs and should happen. I think we're very quick. It's the start of the season. We're getting our fixtures out. We're getting our management teams in place. We make sure that they have balls and bibs. We give them slots on the pitch, and we sort of let them go. I think this is really important because, again, it's just making that connection with your coaches, and it's making them feel that they're supported, okay? You may have some coaches that are extremely capable and they don't want to know about you, okay? I'd worry more about them because are they sticking to your club plan in terms of the way you want to play. So I think that's very important, particularly for coaches maybe that are starting off, head coaches in their new role, to give them that support to say, you are doing a great job, we are keeping our players, you're encouraging, and it's a positive group that for that particular group. Ensure that the club school link is maintained and enhanced with the regular engagement with the school principal or the point of contact. Again, it could be a role adopted by the coaching officer, but could it be someone within your club that has a really good link with the school in your catchment area that can carry out that role? All you need to do as coaching officer then is just regular engagement with them, make sure that there's coaches there. It's actually one of the things that my own club is very good with. Our school is quite close to a pitch. We've regular involvement. We've about 10 parents that share the load, and the school's football is going very well there. Coordinate club camps to increase participation. I suppose all clubs generally host a cool camp across Munster, but there are certainly opportunities between the midterms. And again, it's just an opportunity to get kids playing GA more. It may seem a body of work, but again, are there coaches within your team or are there volunteers within your club that maybe are on shift duty that can do a couple of hours during the week? I know of a club that ran a camp in Easter, and they got a load of their transition year students that were over 16. They got a couple of teachers that were down from college that were learning, and they actually used it as a way of getting kids to play football and a few quid for the coaches. So there's loads of different innovative ways. And the young whistlers, it's becoming a big topic for us now in Kerry. We're moving back to the even ages. So at under 12, we're going to have young whistlers. And it's very important that we identify, develop and support them. A lot of them do the TY course, which the GDCs would be involved. So it's important as coaching officers that you link in with your GDC, because they will have a name of the people or the kids in your club that have done that course, and then you can attract them to referee your go games within the club. So again, there's loads of different ideas about your club coaching game subcommittee. I think the first thing I'd say, sometimes less is more. Might be a slight contradiction, but if you've 10 or 12 people and you're trying to start off and develop a club coaching plan, you can get a lot of opinions, and it can cause some. It can be a bit more difficult than having maybe a tighter group. Obviously, the club coaching officer would chair it. A suggestion that I would have would be your Cushion Oak chairperson or secretary, that they would act as secretary for the subcommittee. Your club children's officer, it's obviously paramount that they're on it, because it's their responsibility to make sure all the coaches are comply with safeguarding. A person, again, to coordinate the club school links, which I've already gone into. And then, in terms of other members, club members with a known expertise knowledge of coaching. That could be, might necessarily be coaching. That could be a person that has a good knowledge of other aspects of that fall in under the remit of coaching games. Sometimes you can dip into maybe some of our elder people that were juvenile coaches, maybe coached the senior team for a while. They probably, if they're coaches, it's in their DNA. They'd love to be involved, to be part of the club coaching game subcommittee, which is basically influencing the next generation. So that's just, I think that's sometimes we tend to, I won't say we're ageist, but when guys are coaching teams and they disappear off into the sunset, sometimes we leave all that expertise and knowledge at home. So I think that's just something to consider. These are examples of good practices that I'm aware of in Kerry, okay? I'm sure across all the other 5 counties, there's hosts and hosts of great examples. So Milltown, Castlemaine, Kerry is, from a demographic point of view, struggles the most with rural depopulation. The vast majority of our clubs, particularly on the real southern aspect and the northern aspect, are struggling with numbers. However, we have a sort of a centre belt around the middle of the county, from sort of Killarney to Killorglin and maybe a small bit further west, where we're actually seeing demographic growth, particularly in the age profile of the people, young people working in either Killarney or Killorglin, living in that area. Milltown is in that sort of centre belt, and their numbers have grown significantly. They have a really good coaching game subcommittee led by their coaching officer, Ian Twiss. There was an appetite for ladies football going back about 10 years ago. A couple of clubs local established the MKL Gales, which became very good, very popular, shared facilities amongst all the clubs, but it actually became too big. So in recent years, Milltown have now reformed as their own LGFA club. They have ladies now at under 12s, 14s, first year under 16s this year, and they actually have a senior team up and running. So that's a great example of just identifying, I suppose, a niche within their membership of where they need to develop, and they've really embraced the one club model. So that's a really good example of, I suppose, integration, which is coming down the tracks. Dr. Crokes, obviously you're all familiar with Pat, who does a fantastic job. From my perspective, from the outside looking in, for Crokes, it's not all about winning at under 12, 14, 16, or whatever age groups we had in Kerry. It's all about the bigger picture. And for a number of years now, we have a lot of Kerry people in here. You'd all be aware that Dr. Crokes have actually 3 teams in our senior county league. So for them, it's all about getting guys, developing them on the player development pathway to make sure that they're playing adult football. A lot of the guys that won county championship medals this year for Dr. Crokes in Kerry, probably last year were on their B team, and the previous year were on their C team. So it's almost like a pathway to get up there. So that's a good example of that. Tralee Parnells, Colin O'Brien, our GDC, who's speaking in the next parallel session, has been heavily involved in the growth of Tralee Parnells. Again, started off as a small group of volunteers, got some pitch time in our Kerry GA's pitch in Carsalee, and now we have Tralee Parnells over a very short period of time are now a senior county championship team in Kerry. They have underage teams at every level. They have really developed the camogie side. They have represented Kerry in Féile at least 2 times in the last number of years. So that's a really good example of growing the smaller code in Kerry, but it also is an example of Parnells using the resources of the likes of Cullum and Giles, our 2 hurling GDCs, and the county board, because they still don't have a home ground. They still work off our pitch in Carsalee, but we're working closely with them to develop hurling in the town of Tralee. And then just an interesting one, probably might be something similar in a lot of parishes in Munster. We've Cratt O'Neill's, who are a senior hurling club in Kerry, and we have St. Senan's, who are a junior Premier football club in Kerry. They're in the same parish. So essentially, if you live in that parish, you play hurling with Cratt O'Neill's and you play football with St. Senan's. So for years and years, most clubs in Kerry would have their academies on Sunday. So it became a competition for the kids. So now Cratt O'Neill's and St. Senan's have come up with a shared nursery programme where they do every second week in the venue, but they integrate hurling and football. So that's a fantastic model of collaboration between obviously the coaching groups from both Cratt O'Neill's and St. Senan's. So the key points to note from my perspective is, if you're a club coaching officer, don't do it on your own, because if you do it on your own, if you're really capable, you will probably fulfil all the responsibilities from the document from Croke Park. I've no doubt about that, but you'll have a life expectancy, because challenges will come in your way and they'll piss you off. And it'll be very frustrating. Whereas if you have a team around you, it'll share the load, share the responsibility. And I'm sure all of us also played the game. And the reason why we played the game is we enjoyed being part of a team. And this is no different. When you're an administrator, to be part of a team, build a team around you, right? Surround yourself with good people. They don't have to be the best. You don't have to be Eamon Fitzmaurice or John Kyle. You don't need those type of caliber of people in your coaching game subcommittee. Just get really good people that you can trust on, that if you give them a task, that they'll do it. And people that, you know, if you do come into those difficult times to make difficult decisions, that they'll have your back. And stick to the club plan. I think where that will really help you is in those times of adversity. When you have an issue with a coach, and again, it's a volunteer dealing with a volunteer. When you have that issue with a coach, if on your plan that you have standards set for your club, and every club is different. My club, St. Pat's, will have a different, completely different plan, coaching development plan, to Austin Stacks, who are 5 miles in the road. But if you stick to your club plan should incorporate your club values, what's important to you. Our values in my club is every person is very important because we need them in order to survive. Right? That's not to say it's not the ethos of all GA clubs, but for us, it is our number one criteria. So if we have an issue with a coach then, he's not giving enough game time to a player, we can fall back on our plan. That was part of your sign-up agreement. So I think if you stick to your club plan, that'll help you in the long term. That's pretty much it. I think I'm close enough on time. 2 minutes, Michal. 2 minutes over time. So any questions? Yeah.
Who in your club signs off on who coaches who? Is the club coaching officer recommended them to the actual executive? And secondly, in your club, or would you recommend that, you mentioned important to have a good relationship with the club chair, but is the club coaching officer as chair of the subcommittee on the actual executive?
Yes.
Would you recommend?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's actually a rule in Cork Park now where the coaching officer is a member, the club coaching officer is a member on the club executive.
Do you think they have the equal status of the traditional secretary, treasurer?
Absolutely.
Sorry, is it the board and org executive for the senior club executive?
Senior club executive, yeah. So I think that rule was passed in Congress about, was it 2 years ago, Michal? Yeah, where the club coaching officer now has to be a member of the club of the club executive. So in other words, every club executive has to have an appointed club coaching officer. So that's very important, and that's on the senior club executive. Back to your first point in relation to the appointment of coaches. The way I would see it forward is that obviously you would put out interest. You know, you'd finish a season, give coaches a break. You'd send out, like, for example, I'll give you an example of what happened in our club. Our coaching officer sent out a Google form to all the coaches and asked them, you know, your name, date of birth, email address, what age group would you like to coach at? And the most important question is, if you cannot coach at that age grade, is there another age grade? Because sometimes we might have parents that have a couple of kids, and if they can't get involved with their daughter at under 12, they might get involved with their son at under 8. So that's a very important question. Then you collaborate all those names. You sit down with your coaching game subcommittee. You've had your plan, and you just pick the people that you feel will do the best job for that particular team. And there will be, as I said, that's why there's a bit of negotiation. That probably role, that one-to-one role with a coach, probably should fall back on the coaching officer, or at least the club cushion and oak chairperson, or whatever structure or whatever age grade you're talking about. That's, you know, they're the tricky decisions. But if you're fortunate enough to have a situation like that where you've got a number of coaches looking over one particular team, can you pick and choose them? And then you're proposing them to your club executive. So on your club executive meeting, you're bringing forward and you're saying, there's our list of under 12s, there's our list of under 14 coaches, there's our list of under 16s. One of the roles of the plan too, the club plan, is literally make out roles. So say, okay, who's going to be the lead coach? So who's going to be the guy, who's going to be my lead coach? Sometimes your lead coach may not be technically your best coach. He could be, in my view, what's the lead coach? The most important guy is a really good communicator. If it's underage, really good communicator, solid. The parents can trust him. He's clear messaging to the parents. He's the point of contact where a parent can come to if there's an issue. It may not be a coaching issue. It could be an issue involving the kid outside of the team, the team environment. So I think that's important. Then you'd have a coach who would maybe plan the session plans, or that could be a shared role. And then you could have a couple of parents to help out with administration, sending out messages, with checking registration to make sure the teams are registered and so on and so forth, and maybe coordinating with the Costello and Og secretary in terms of fixtures, coordinating with the pitch coordinator for getting slots for your team. So that's why I'm saying you're almost building little teams on little teams. I think sometimes what we do is we expect, sorry now Brian, I'll pick you out, Brian from Listowel. We'll expect Brian to be head coach there of the Listowel Miners. Off you go, Brian. And then Brian has to do all those jobs. And I guarantee you Brian will, his son will come through the system and Brian will probably walk out the door then because he'll be burnt out. So I think, to answer your point, I think that's the way I would propose appointing your coaches. Bring them to the club executive. If there is an issue with a club, if the club executive have an issue with one, then that'll have to be dealt with, or a particular group. But invariably, if you have a good relationship with your chairman, you know what you're proposing will be signed off. Yep. Yep.
You mentioned an acronym there, and I just want to hear what it is. ICGG?
Introduction course to Gaelic Games. That's the new foundation course. So it's one that was developed by the GAA, but it's actually covering all codes. So it's covering Gaelic football, ladies football, camogie and hurling. It's Dermot, you might give some detail on it.
Yes, the ICGG course, Introduction to Coaching Gaelic Games. I suppose that it became the ICGG about 4 or 5 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
And it's more comprehensive than
Yeah.
the foundation.
Yeah. Yeah, and you link in with your GDC on that in terms of scheduling your coaches.
I hope Micheál Duffy gave you some good help with preparation of those slides this morning, did he?
No.
Sending out messages to panels, nowadays, what's the preferred method? Say from a coach sending messages to players about training games and all that stuff. What is the preferred method?
Obviously, if it's underage, there's no communication with players directly. That's sacrosanct. Most of I think a lot of clubs probably don't appreciate the features that are actually involved in Fern, which is our database where players are registered in. Okay, so within Fern, you can develop teams, you can send out messages, which is a reminder on apps. You can, I could send out a message to you. I could be coaching your son's team, say, reminder, there's a game on Saturday. And then it'll send you a reminder, maybe is it an hour or two in advance. Fern will also, you can also track attendance on Fern. You can also print team sheets out for games. You can track registration if your registration is linked to Fern. So that's, from a GA perspective, that's probably what I would recommend.
One option, Joe. Give another one, please.
Clubs app is a clubs app that an awful lot of clubs use. WhatsApp really isn't a preferred option. I know Croke Park probably doubled down a bit on WhatsApp. There are features within WhatsApp that you can use that'll help you. For example, making it admin only. I'm a parent of a boy who's 9 years of age and he's on a soccer group and it drives me nuts. There's messages pinging at 10 and 2 o'clock in the morning and all different times. But if you are using WhatsApp, it's not to recommend, but certainly go admin only on that. Yeah. Yeah, no matter.
Just in relation, you mentioned how to put the nurseries together. We've got the exact opposite issue whereby we're amalgamated underage from like 11 up to 17.
Mm-hmm.
How is there a good case studies on how that's managed and the role of the two different clubs together?
So it's an amalgamation of two clubs.
Our nurseries are separate. Under 11s, under 17s are together, and our seniors are separate.
Okay, so what you wanted me to talk about is from 11s to 17s. Yeah, for me, and I've seen really good amalgamations fall in Kerry, in one this year, but one last year, which should have never happened. And that's where you need really strong executives. For me, your club could have 70% of the squad one year and the other club could have 30. It could go 50-50 split the following year. You just split it down the middle. It's the only equitable way. This is my view on it anyway. If you're playing County League and you've 6 rounds of the County League, you wear jerseys for your home games. If the home games are on your club pitch, you wear jerseys on that, unless you have an amalgamated kit. Share the load, share the wealth, share the expenses in the buses, share the cost for if there's end of year seasons. At the end of the day, the reason why amalgamations are happening is because we're struggling for numbers. The reason why you want to do it is you want to get every single player from your side of the house through to adult level, okay? So all you got to do is to try and keep them together, is just make it as even and as equitable as possible. Where I've seen them crash is those coaching groups. When a strong character comes in from one club and he runs the roost. And I saw a really bad amalgamation fall last year and carry over that. And that's up to the club executives. It goes back to the club chairpersons. So in an amalgamation point of view, the coaching officers have to be in sync, and your club chairperson, your two club chairpersons, has to be regular communication in that.
They share that commission.
Yeah, I would split it down the middle, for the simple reason is that it's really the fairest one. It really is the fairest option.